We're going to explore a lesser discussed corner of the gig economy, work camping, and this refers to seniors living nomadically in RVs um, and working seasonal jobs to survive financially. So, at first glance, it might look like a free spirited lifestyle, but as we'll see, it often masks serious economic precarity, housing insecurity, and a systemic failure in how we support older Americans. So work camping, as I mentioned, involves traveling around the country in RVs, accepting low wage or no wage jobs. They include things like Amazon's Camper Force program, national park concessions or amusement parks. And while a few people do choose this life for adventure, many are pushed into it by financial necessity. So their RVs function as both shelter and transportation, parked in employer lots with minimal amenities. Amazon's Camper Force, I think, exemplifies corporate adaptation to this labor pool. So the company recruits seniors to work in warehouses, offering parking spots with electrical hookups. But the jobs are grueling. It's packing, lifting, standing for hours. It's marketed as a flexible lifestyle job, but it depends really on the economic vulnerability of the elderly. So the number of working seniors has more than doubled since 2000, so from 4 million to over 9 million. And it isn't just about staying active in retirement, it's also about survival. Social Security benefits have lost 30% of their purchasing power since 2000, and the shift from pensions to individual 401ks means retirement risk is now on the individual, not the employer. So many are simply unprepared to retire. The job work campers take are seasonal. Campground staff, warehouse packers, security guards. Pay ranges from $8 to $18 an hour, rarely with benefits, and also could be a volunteer unpaid position. That's the case with the national parks. And employers might provide RV hookups, but the workers maintain their vehicles and carry the burden of housing upkeep. So it's not really a stable environment, it's patchwork survival. Housing costs, they've really skyrocketed, far outpacing Social Security. So for many older adults, traditional housing is no longer affordable, and living in an RV is not a choice. It's the only option left. One woman interviewed in an article that I'm including explained how she lives on a $1,200 a month, which is far below rents in most places, and these jobs let her stay afloat. Work camping is not a retirement dream. It's a coping strategy. So almost 40% of Americans reach retirement age with under $10,000 in savings, and that's not sustainable. So seasonal work leads to income gaps. Seniors often dip into life insurance, rely on family, or exhaust small reserves between gigs, and they're constantly walking a financial tightrope. So the labor itself is often not suitable for aging bodies. So seniors are more prone to injury and slower recovery. Many are technically contractors, so they lack workers' comp protections. Pre-existing conditions may exclude them from coverage. Health care, if included, is inconsistent and often delayed due to cost. One man shared he lost his emergency fund after pulling his back with no support and no income for months. So let's consider this slide not just as a labor issue, but as a career counseling crisis. So, as counselors, we're taught to help clients find sustainable, fulfilling work across the lifespan, but one happens when older adults are trapped in survival labor. Again, aging bodies face cumulative strain, and counselors must assess not just the career interests of clients in later life, but also their physical limitations and how those intersect with the demands of available jobs. Counselors may also encounter clients who've delayed medical care, experienced injuries without support. Um, basically living in your constant financial fear. So I would term this occupational trauma, and it often goes unnamed. So, in terms of a counseling response, introduce conversations around accessing disability benefits, Medicare navigation, free community health clinics. You're going to want to assess for burnout, moral injury, or existential distress, especially when clients express shame or self blame for the circumstances. You're going to want to integrate career adaptability framework. So, what short term roles might offer safer conditions or better alignment with their values? And do you want to normalize the idea that asking for help is a strength, not failure, and connect them to aging and disability resource centers, AARP resources, or senior employment programs? So remember, many of these clients were lifelong workers and are, I guess, right? Their value isn't diminished by age or economic vulnerability. So our job in these cases is to affirm their dignity, expand options, and support their resilience. There's a strong emotional toll here. While many work campers form temporary communities, this frequent relocation can lead to isolation and a loss of social roots. So some find purpose, others feel displaced, and the financial anxiety, it never stops. There's no safety net, no end in sight. Aging without stability erodes mental and emotional well being. So I think that this slide opens up essential territory for what I would call mental health informed career counseling. So, since many work campers express feeling dislocated, not just geographically, but emotionally and socially, they may grieve a previous career identity, they may miss family and community, and feel unsure how to define themselves outside of structured employment. So, I think in this case, helping clients reauthor their narrative. So using, I guess I'm going to call it narrative career counseling to validate past achievements while constructing new meaning around their current journey, and using lifespan development theory like Erickson's integrity versus despair to contextualize the emotional complexities of their experience. We want to guide clients to focus on coherence, connection, and legacy, especially if retirement never happened the way they imagined. We also want to acknowledge the ambivalence of freedom. For some, the open road is liberating, and for others, it's disorienting. So we want to make space for both realities. I think facilitating referrals to virtual support groups for seniors or nomad networks that focus on connection, creativity, and aging in community also introduce expressive modalities, things like journaling, photo storytelling, audio life reviews that help make meaning of their journey. Exploring low cost opportunities for contribution based roles that reinforce self worth. And ultimately, I think career counseling in this space blends practical resource connection with identity repair and dignity restoration. So for me, the crisis is rooted in policy failure. There's just not enough affordable housing for seniors. Social Security is inadequate. Healthcare for mobile seniors is fragmented. Labor protections for temporary workers are minimal. So this isn't just about individuals making tough choices. It's, if I could go so far as to say, it's about a country failing to care for its elders. And while work camping may appear to offer freedom, for most, it's the illusion of choice. So the reality is economic desperation in a country that's neglected retirement, security, housing, and healthcare. So these seniors show extraordinary resilience, but they shouldn't have to. I think our systems should do much better. As I mentioned, this entire topic was drawn from an article that I read about national parks. So as I alluded to earlier, work campers can be volunteers in national parks, and they're often working 20 to 32 hours a week for free hookups and stunning scenery, I guess. But these are often retirees. Um, I mean, I guess you've got two categories. I mean, you've got some who have secure pensions who are seeking meaning, not income. But there's also like this two-tiered system, those who can afford to volunteer and those who must work. So one volunteer shared in one of the articles that I read that it's not about the money, it's about contributing and living with purpose. And that's admirable, but it highlights who has the luxury of choice. So this slide presents what at first appears to be a picturesque and noble form of retirement labor, volunteering in national parks, but let's interrogate this more deeply. What does it mean when labor is offered for free in exchange for housing and beauty? Like who gets to volunteer, who has to work again? These unpaid roles, anything from visitor center staff to campground hosts and trail maintenance, are framed as service opportunities for retirees. And again, that reward is free RV hookup and access to public lands. But the labor expectations are really high and often in remote areas with no financial compensation. So some critical questions I think for us are, what systemic failures does this arrangement expose? I think it exposes the need for housing workarounds that reflect more affordable housing. I think it shows how public institutions are increasingly dependent on labor, unpaid labor rather, raising ethical concerns. And I think it romanticizes the experience, that whole idea of living with purpose in nature risks masking exploitation, especially when the labor fills gaps that should be paid positions. So in a way, this model assumes some degree of financial cushion. You've got people who are doing this with stable retirement incomes or other assets, but it also could exclude, lower income seniors um, who are, when you think about this again in this two-tiered system, you've got people who this is a thing, a nice thing to do. They don't have to do it. And then you've got people who are lower income seniors who are like labor for survival. So you've got those laboring for survival and those volunteering for enrichment. So you want to be cautious of narratives that overglorify purposeful aging or active retirement without naming economic privilege, I think. So for clients who are drawn to volunteering, you might want to explore what needs are being met. Is the social connection, legacy, identity, or is it a means to stretch limited resources? You want to assess, is their labor truly voluntary? Or is it subsidizing their housing in a way that erases worker protections? There's risks again of isolation, poor healthcare access, or physical strain, particularly when stationed in remote park sites. I think you should normalize ambivalence. So some clients may feel both proud and uneasy about the arrangement, and I think allowing them to name and hold both is good. You might want to help clients weigh the trade-offs, like is it sustainable? Is there adequate backup if illness strikes? Can purpose be found elsewhere under safe or more stable conditions? I think introducing alternatives like paid conservation corps for older adults, intergenerational community service programs, or local environmental organizations that offer stipends. I mean, I guess things are going through my head. Is it still volunteering if the work meets a critical staffing need and the worker cannot afford to live nearby otherwise? So what's the line between meaning making and labor exploitation for me is like at the heart of this, and just wondering what you think. So we'll take a look at some of these questions.